Welcome back. You are in episode 2, part 2, and we are picking up exactly where we left off, talking about the big leap. So let's go ahead and dive into the next episode.
When we are talking about taking the leap, and I know that you mentioned, Emily, a couple of leaps that you took earlier on where maybe it didn't quite feel like, oh, that's not quite what I was looking for, or I really wanted this thing and now I'm in it and it's not what I had imagined. I went through the exact same thing earlier on in my career as well, where I kept trying new things, kept investing in different programs in school or different tracks career-wise. And I even got a little insecure about because people around me would start making comments about, oh, so you're changing, like you're switching gears again, right? Or, oh, you're pivoting again. And to me, I was just so focused on finding something that was really, really thought aligned, where I really felt like I was in the right place. And that mattered to me. And I think now there may even be a little bit of higher pressure on folks that are just getting into the career market, that are just starting off their lives, really. And we have social media, and you see all these examples of people that took the leap, and they're sharing the success stories. And what I love about those success stories is that it is a reminder of what's possible. It is a reminder that the 9-to-5 isn't our only option, that there's creative ways to create revenue, and that we can be our own boss. That's all amazing. The negative aspect of that, I think, is the pressure that can be created to think that we need to be 22 and took one leap of leaving our 9-to-5, and now we are millionaires flying around the world, right? That's possible for one person. So if we haven't gotten that outcome, then somehow we've mislept, if you will.
Yeah. I know for me with that, it's like, I totally resonate with that, because I felt like when I started my previous coaching business, I was seeing all of these people out into the world that were doing their coaching business in this like one particular way. And so I felt like that I had to conform myself into being the same type of person that had all of these like, fabulous things going on for my life, even if my fabulous thing is I got out of bed that morning. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, I got out of bed and like I made breakfast, but it's like, how like luxurious is this in like the grand scheme of everything? And so I felt like I was like alone and lost in all of that. And so I find that like also when you're taking leaps, that you can not see yourself represented within like the wide world. And I feel like that can be intimidating, and that can cause some like fear and imposter syndrome for you. At least it did for me when I wasn't seeing my, myself and how I represent myself out into the world. And I was seeing all these people being, themselves, and that's different than me. And that's the way it's supposed to be. But I find that a lot of people think that it's like you're just a carbon copy of everybody else, and you're not. And so it's understanding that you need to be out into the world and show this different representation that exists within the world, and not try to conform yourself into being just like everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you think about this idea of purpose, if we're really looking at it at almost like this soul level, right, where there's something that each and every one of us really is meant to do while we're here, then that is going to be very unique. There might be some shared experiences there, like that shared human experience that we all go through, but to a certain extent, we're all going to have to take, if we're being truly authentic and we're really following that harder route that's really going to guide us to something fulfilling and that really feels like I'm where I'm meant to be, then it's going to look so different for all of us. And what I heard from your story, and where I think it mirrors mine, is that, and I think that this is more accurate than what most people, like more representative than what most people talk about, is that some of those beginning leaps, they actually kind of suck. Like the outcome actually is not us in a bikini, like making millions of dollars. It's actually us as a creative director, sitting next to people that maybe are not what we envisioned working, the type of environment we envisioned working in. Or in my case, it was, trying multiple different careers, ending up in tech, ending up in R&D. And when you hear me talk about working in research and development, oftentimes you hear about all the things I love about it, because it did end up being such an inspiring space that really kind of launched me into all these different other areas that I now love being in. But the reality is, in the beginning of my career, I was very miserable, and I felt like I do not, this doesn't fit with who I am. Like, I felt like I had to completely change myself to really make it work, to be this more like business oriented kind of goal setting person, organizing all of this development work. Like that, it didn't feel like me, and for so many different reasons. But I absolutely, now looking back, realize that that was a huge part of my journey. Like getting to work, and that still happens to me, where I'm still working in environments sometimes where I'm being mansplained things, you know, and I never thought I would experience that. And I'm just now starting to be in environments where I'm actually, where that's happening, and I'm being told, no, you don't understand, no this, no that. And in the moment, it does not feel aligned. It does not resonate. It does not feel good.
No, girl,
like
it feels terrible.
I want to be. I don't want to be mansplained. I don't want to be talked down to. I don't want this or that. But now I have enough context that I know I am going through the exact steps I need to go through. I am in the right place to learn what I need to learn to ultimately be in my purpose. Because yeah, it sucks to be mansplained to, but guess what? In the next conversation, if I can just like find a way to navigate that, then now I'm getting exposure to so many concepts and so many different ideas that I really want to be able to bring to other tables, that I really want to bring to women making the leap, that I know will support this bigger picture vision. But before, when I didn't really have a full grasp of the bigger picture vision, all I saw was what was right in front of me. And what was right in front of me was not always the best experience. You know, it really did suck a lot of the time.
I know in my experience of that I always felt like that, oh, I was in the wrong. Even if I wasn't, even if there wasn't a right or wrong, it always made me feel like that I was, you know, I like missed the memo. I missed the train. Like I'm the one out here on the island. So, you know, and
isolating.
It does. It feels like so isolating in those moments that you feel so alone and you feel like that you're wrong. And so you try to like adapt and change. And the thing I love that you said during that process is that you're like, no, I'm going to stay authentic and true to myself. And I know that like, I'm not like, you know, it's not you. You're not the problem. It's not you. Like Taylor Swift. So it's like not that.
Anti-hero.
Yeah.
The hero. You are the hero. Sorry,
you're the anti-hero.
We'll nerd out on Swiftie. Okay.
Yeah, Swifties here. Anyway, but yeah, so I love that you said that you were still staying authentic to yourself during that, because I find that can be the most challenging part, to not change, you know, those parts about yourself, and also realize that you do belong to be at that table, and that everything is figure outable, and that you know that with this context that you can move forward and be like a better authentic version of yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, anytime I felt frustrated, or anytime I felt maybe annoyed being in some of those conversations, I knew this is a sign that I'm still in a place of growth. This is a sign, like if there's that trigger there, because what I learned about frustration, or even sometimes that gets to the point of like anger, right? Like I'm angry that this is happening. This is not the way it should be. I have a vision for something better, a better work environment, a better scenario, better conversations, whatever it may be. That to me, now I know, is a sign that I don't feel confident in that situation to be able to, like, I feel smaller than the situation. When I get to a place where I feel bigger than the situation I'm in, where I know my vision is bigger than what's happening here, my capabilities are bigger than what's happening here, I can navigate this, I can help direct this in the direction I want to go. When I realize how big I am, I don't feel frustrated. I'm okay. Like, I'm like, yeah, I disagree with what you're saying. This is why. This is what I think we can do about it. And I can help like channel things in a good direction. I don't always feel that way. Sometimes I still feel like I don't have all of the skill sets or all of the influence that I would want to have in a room, at a table, at any given moment. So in those times, that's where I can start to feel that frustration come in. And so to me, it doesn't feel good being in those more challenging situations where things are not as aligned. Like people aren't maybe behaving in a way that I would behave. And so it feels a little off. But those to me are places where I know, okay, I still have room to grow here. Like this can now just be practice to help me get better at these challenging conversations, to help me maybe speak in a way where it does carry more influence, it does carry more impact, whatever it is that I can learn here. Let me just lean into that, because I'm not going to settle for a situation that doesn't feel good. I'm not going to settle for a situation where there is disrespect or maybe like a toxic work environment, whatever it may be, but I may be here for a little while. So let me see what I can learn and grow from to be as like powerful and impactful as possible for that bigger picture. But that's not the way when I first made the leap, that's not the way I treated it. Like my first leap out of corporate felt much more like an escape. Like this felt like I don't want to be here. This is too stressful. It's taking me away from what I really want to be doing. I don't feel fulfilled. And I really didn't know what the true answer was. I just didn't feel good there at the time. And so now when I can tell when am I about to take a leap to escape my current like where I am right now, or am I leaping towards what I really want? And so that's been really, really helpful to kind of see the difference.
The one thing I want to touch on that you said that really spoke to me is that you were able to identify these frustration and angry emotions as they were happening, and being able to talk yourself maybe down from like the ledge of going and saying F you to your boss. You know what I mean? Because I know that when you're in that situation and you have all these emotions, it can be really difficult to be able to understand like all these feelings that are coming up inside of you. So being able to understand that, I think, can also really eliminate like any like lack of confidence that you might have. Because I know in those spaces, you can probably feel your confidence drop, or at least I have personally, like, oh, like my expertise is nothing in this space because look at this person over here that's had like XYZ, ABC, and like, I don't have any of that. So that means that like, whatever, I've made of that in my mind. Whereas like in those situations, you're able to walk in confident and know like what you bring to that situation.
Yeah.
And then you can be able to know how to apply it to everything else. And so I really enjoyed you talking about that.
Yeah. And, you know, I heard something the other day where a woman mentioned that who we're around sometimes, like, it's kind of like the energy of them or the memories or associations that come with them. Have you ever noticed that there are certain people that you might not even see them for a couple of years? And then when you do see them, you may say the exact same story comes to mind that you said to them before. Or maybe
Ivy.
But maybe a couple of the Ivy.
That's probably me and Ivy, because, you know, Ivy is traveling around the world, career chasing. And so, you know, and so we see each other like every couple of years when that happens. And so I probably do. Well, also I'm a circle talker. I know this about myself, where it's like, I say one thing and then I talk about it and then I say it again in one conversation. I'm a circle talker. And so I know that with Ivy, like it definitely happens like with us, where when we like reconnect, that those things happen. And so, yeah.
And you probably find yourself maybe talking about some similar things. Like when you think of Ivy, you probably think of things that you want to talk about with Ivy. You know, it brings up, and what I thought was so interesting about the story that this woman was telling is because her husband, anytime when they'd go to dinner with certain friends that they hadn't seen in a while, she's like, you tell the exact same story when you're around these people that you told it like last time. Like, can we just write down what you talked about? But what stood out, it's a funny story, but what stood out about that is like that we may not even realize, like there are certain stories or certain things that for whatever reason, being around certain people are going to bring up. And so even if at a certain like table or work environment or whatever, like there may be certain stories or certain things that we're going to like, it's just going to come up for us. But when we move into a different environment, I think that just speaks to how like the people and the environment can really make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's something about people, there's something about our experiences with them that it is going to just make our mind go to a certain place. And so to me, that's just a reminder that like it may feel very real in that moment. So someone, I think I'm trying to remember what the example you said, Emily, maybe comparing a little bit, like noticing what they have, maybe feeling less confident in relationship to that. But what's so interesting to me is like, sure, that is an opportunity to like feel that discomfort and maybe find ways to get back to yourself and feel more confident and remember what you bring to the table as well. But also that of just remembering like we are so much, and I know I've already said this before, but like we're so much more than this one environment,
Mm-hmm.
like we can go to a job and it can make us feel maybe like smaller, or it can feel like we feel less confident in in certain conversations. But when we get like, if we can like hold out on that, or if we can kind of power through that and then find the other conversations, there's so many other conversations that are going to bring out something completely different in us, where we do feel like we're meant to be there. We do feel we are seen in a completely different light.
I know that for me, that was definitely something that happened through like the creation of this podcast, especially like, I feel like everybody needs like a Bridget in their life. Just, just take her. I'm just lobbing her wildly out at you, but but everybody needs Bridget because Bridget is like the ultimate hype person. And so she sees all these like great qualities in people and then like continuously reminds them of that. And so I know when I was going through my like, like WTF purpose phase of my life, Bridget was like, oh, but like you're this and you're that and you're this and you're that. And I'm like, oh, you're my friend. And that's cute that you say that, but I didn't necessarily fully believe that, but I was like, oh, that's nice. Once you like are in an environment like me, like I'm in this environment. And so it's like, I'm here with like Brigitte and Ivy, and we're in this like every day building this podcast and this mission and this vision. And so it's like, you start to see these qualities that these people continuously tell you that you have, like, but maybe you're just like trying to be humble or, maybe forget that you have these qualities about you. And then you're like, oh shit, I am a creative powerhouse. Brigitte was right. She's right. Bridget's always right. Just like listen to Brigitte, Emily. Just, don't get in your head. Just like have a little Brigitte come out of your pocket and be like, you're a creative powerhouse. And I'm like, okay, thank you so much.
You are a creative powerhouse.
Back at you.
I'm getting to see it even more. I love getting to do this podcast together because I like continue to be blown away, which is super cool.
Yeah. And I see that a lot of times when you're taking this leap, that it allows you to get more familiar with your skill set, but then also fall in love with the skills that you have that you bring to the table. And when you're not like, when you're in environments that are not, that don't have the process that maybe would work best for you, or the people or the environment or whatever it is, then sometimes you can get lost in that and forget what you actually bring to a table, right? And so whenever you are taking the leap, it's like understanding like you have all these beautiful, amazing skills that you are bringing to the world, to the table, to this vision, to this mission, to whatever, or even just to like a habit tracker, whatever little table that you're trying to do right now, which I have to say my habit tracker has been going really well anyway. So it's understanding these things and then bringing them to the table. And then I feel like once you are deeply familiar with the skill sets that you bring to this, then nobody can tell you nothing because you're like, I bring this to the table. I am planting my flag in the ground. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. This is what I am passionate about. So if anyone comes and tells you something otherwise, you're like, you can't tell me nothing. Like, this is who I am. Like, I am Beyonce strutting down the grocery store. This is who I am today, Yeah,
100%. You keep getting more and more confident about what you bring and why you're there. but it really is a process. I mean, I do truly believe that you can be guided to do certain things initially just because you need that experience, you need those skills. Or it is following a path of what you're really passionate about, but it may not feel great at first because we are building up that confidence doing it. But I completely agree with you. Like, if we keep taking those risks, we're going to keep building up that confidence, and it's going to just keep feeling better and better and better. And that idea, the whole idea of, the imposter syndrome, it can fade away as the more we're doing the things that we want to do. And if the person who's actually doing something is therefore not an imposter. You're only an imposter if you say you're something and you're not doing the thing that you're saying you're doing.
I think that getting through that is by taking tiny leaps and being able to really show yourself like that you can do this. Because I know for me, fear of failure is a big thing for me, that I don't want to fail. Failure means whatever it means to me, which is a lot of meaning. I have created a lot of meaning about failure for myself. And so I'm sure a lot of people have too, not just me, but I know that if you take tiny little leaps towards the big leap, just tiny little things to prove to yourself that you actually are the shit and you know what you're doing, then that will really make you build more confidence in yourself as you're getting to maybe more scarier leaps in the process, because, there's tiny little baby leaps and then there's like bigger, longer ones that maybe you want to throw up a little bit. Let's take a quick break and be right back. Now back to the episode. Okay, so let's recap today about taking the big leap and some high-level tips based on people that are, reminds me of the game like Leapfrog or Frogger, like two little froggers over here. Yeah. So first thing I think that you should do is to be able to spend time with yourself, to be able to understand what is the vision, what is the why. Why needs to be very deeply and emotionally connected to you. Usually for me, the thing that I leap towards are things that make me feel less alone in the world. And so creating things to help people feel less alone in the world, that's my leaper thing. But it could be something different for you, but that's my leaper thing, is to make people feel less alone in the world. So the second thing is to create a support system around you of people that are going to have your back, that you can be vulnerable with and not feel weird about being vulnerable with. And then the third thing is really just to build up your confidence in the thing that you are doing, taking tiny leaps and getting more and more confident as you're taking the leaps and understanding like what you bring to the table.
That's such a great recap, Emily. And the only thing I'll add to that is because I think that or just accentuate that you already put of taking those tiny leaps, I think are so huge. And for anyone listening, I also would like to really put out this reminder that if in those initial leaps, it doesn't go the way you expected, or it brings you somewhere where you're like, oh, geez, this is not what I was wanting. This is not that great of an experience. They told me I was going to leap and end up in Bali. This is BS. But keep going. Why do I keep going back to that? Do I really want to be on an island somewhere? Or like,
girl, I do too. Are you? We're going to be roommates in Bali. Okay.
I was like, that's our leap. Beach on Instagram, and I'm not. No, just kidding. But
it's snowing.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Can't do it. But no, really, like if it takes you somewhere that you were not anticipating, or if you make the leap and it doesn't feel great, it's not you. Don't see that as a failure. Don't see that as, like Emily said, you're not broken. The process is broken. You didn't make a mistake. You took a leap based on guidance, and that is very easily part of the master plan. And because it happened, it's inherently part of the master plan. So keep going with it. Take that, like, don't let that, because I am saying this from experience. If you leap and fail, please, please, please don't let that shake your confidence in yourself and in your ability to take the next leap the next time. We are meant to continue leaping. It's not just one big leap that brings us to success. It is continuous building up of leaps. and sometimes leaping in different directions and landing in different places. But we're meant to be there, and we can kind of keep going, like that leapfrog effect.
Oh my God, that part right there. Just like, don't lose yourself in the process. Because that happens. I've done it. Bridget's done it. I'm sure Ivy has. I'm just speaking on her behalf, but yeah, she's nodding in the camera.
She's nodding.
That you can't see.
On our side.
But
view.
Yeah, but you lose yourself and you forget who you are. You forget what you bring to the table, and so that's so key, Bridget, is to like understand that you're not the problem. It's not you. Anti-hero.
Anti-hero. Hashtag anti-hero. I mean, pivoting is part of life. It's part of the experimentation process. And you don't even know to pivot if you don't leap first. You don't even know. Sometimes you got to leap to know where to go next.
Yeah, because all the things that you've leaped before and maybe haven't worked have led you to this leap. It reminds me of something. It was like a quote that somebody told me when I was feeling like really rotted and like I didn't have anything going for me, is that they said that you've been through all of your worst days, and so why can't you get through this one? You've already been through it all. You're resilient. You've gone through all your worst days. So like, why can't you do this? You can do this. You've already done it before. You've already done it in other ways that maybe you're just like not intentionally not recognizing, because maybe that's just where you are in the process. And I've been there and I totally get it. And I just had horse blinders on, so I'm a terrible person. And so it's like understanding that if you take those off, then, oh no, I've been through all this before. I can do it again. Of course. Really enjoyed talking to you today about this, Bridget, because I was able to learn like a little bit more about how our stories are very similar and intertwined. And you also learned about me too. What was your favorite part about today's podcast?
My favorite part about today's podcast was seeing the different steps and leaps that you took that brought you here. And I'm a fan of trends. I like seeing like big picture, kind of like where we all come together and what we all might be kind of experiencing that might overlap. And so that was really cool to me to not only hear more about your side, but also see where there's that overlap and realize that, oh, okay, like maybe I wasn't the only one who took these leaps, landed somewhere where I was not ideal, but because I got through that, now I'm able to take more fulfilling leaps today. And I hear that in your story too. And I see like we have that similarity in the pattern, but what we actually did and what we actually learned was very uniquely different to make us now have these like very unique, different experiences, skill sets, all the things that now get to come together, right? So I think that's just so cool to see. And I love seeing that kind of outcome from people's stories.
Yeah. I totally agree that like seeing how everything intertwined with us was like very interesting. And I also really appreciated that you touched on how to go into a room, be yourself in the room, and then take the lessons out of the room and be able to grow from them and not use them as tactics to make yourself feel crappy about you, because that can happen. And so taking the lessons, taking the nuggets, moving them forward, and continuing to stay confident in your next leap. That was really, I really enjoyed hearing that, because I feel like I need to hear that too.
Well put. All I needed was your recap. I think that's exactly, I love your recap. That was really well put.
And I love your recap. And that's the podcast. We'll chat with y'all next week.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Whole Damn Table podcast with Brigitte Donovan and Emily Wilson.
What happens after you...
If you're new to the pod, welcome. We're so happy you are here. You can find us on social media at The Whole Damn Table on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
All of the show notes from this episode and all of our episodes can be found on our website at www.thewholedamntable.com.
A big, huge thank you to our executive producer, Ivy Mazza, and our music creator, Ryan Fisher. You can find him on Instagram at fishbeats with 2 S's.
And lastly, if you enjoyed the episode, please give us a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. This helps us to get out our message, our mission, and our impact with more listeners that want what we're sharing. Thank you again for listening, and chat next week.
Chat with y'all next week. Bye, y'all.